Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to our 12 noon Eastern webinar, Closing the Gap Between You and Your Patients. This is Jim Gerson from CareStack. You're in the right place. We're going to allow people to join here for another minute or so, and then we're going to get started. And as you join today's program, please note that you're intentionally in the mute position, both with your camera and with your microphone. But we want this to be participatory. So if you do have questions or comments, please use the Q&A feed on the bottom of your screen. And again, we'll probably get started in about another 30 seconds or so. But you're in the right place. This is your 12 noon Eastern webinar, Closing the Gap Between You and Your Patients, presented by Darby and CareStack. All right, let's get started. I don't want to penalize the people that are here on time. Good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar today. Jim Gerson from CareStack. I'm joined here today by Jeff Daly from Darby Dental. Dan Hall, my colleague from CareStack, who will be involved in some of the presentation, and our featured speaker, Lynne Leggett, excuse me.
It's all right.
I was rehearsing that before this. My apologies. I knew I was going to mess something up. And so you're in the right place. Your cameras are intentionally muted, as well as your microphones, but we want you to be involved. We've allocated time at the end of today's program specifically to address your questions and comments. So if you're on a PC, on the bottom of your Zoom panel, you'll have a Q&A button and you can ask questions. And if you're using an iPad or an iOS device, it's probably going to be in the top of the Zoom panel. So please, make use of that. We don't want to be, just talking to you. We want you to feel involved and engaged. So in a moment, we're going to get started with our actual program. But first, I'm going to have a quick word from our two sponsors. And Jeff Daly from Darby Dental is going to speak for a moment.
Sure.
So Jeff, take it away, please.
Sure. Thanks so much. Appreciate the intro, Jim. And thank you again, everybody, for taking the time for today's presentation. We're excited to partner again with CareStack and with Lynne as she helps provide some insights into how to drive more patients into your practice and keep them there through an improved patient experience. Jim and I were talking earlier today, and it's crazy to think that we've already done, I forget what the exact number was, Jim, but 20-something webinars since the chain started. So we hope everybody's seeing the same value that we hope is coming through these presentations. The 5-minute shameless plug about Darby is what you may already know about us, is that we partner with our customers to help keep their dental supply costs down. Over the past 10 years or so, we've also been focused on building a suite of solutions to help our customers resolve the challenges that they tell us they face on a daily basis. So today, those services include things like our partnership with CareStack. They also include a full offering of IT services, of outsourced IT services, mechanical equipment service, and a number of others. Finally, and maybe most salient given what's happening in the world today, that just a reminder, for our entire 70+ year history, all of our account managers have worked completely remotely with our customers. So that means no extra feet walking into your practice, no disruptions during your day in these times that are really challenging to adjust to the new workflows of a practice, without sacrificing that really in-depth level of relationship and service that you can experience from one of our account managers. So our team is standing by and ready to help practices in any way that we possibly can. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about what we do and how we may be able to help your practice, please definitely feel free to reach out to one of our account managers. And Jim, I'll turn it back over to you.
Jeff, thank you very much for that introduction. And a quick moment on CareStack, and I promise we're going to get to Lynne. This is just 60 seconds or less. So who is CareStack? We're a 100% cloud-based solution for the complete management of dental practice. And we typically work with two types of practices. That's for a contact-free experience for their patients, and they see technologies enabling that and just don't know how to get there. They need some help. The second is a practice that's grown frustrated and aggravated by managing a growing multitude of software subscriptions to be able to really provide a contemporary experience for their patients and staff. This means one subscription for charting, another one for reminders, another one for forms, another one for curbside check-in. The list goes on. And the practice owners and staff are just frustrated and aggravated, and sometimes sleepless nights result from having to manage all these different software subscriptions. So if you fall into one of these two buckets, please go to carestack.com after this presentation and book a demo with us so you can learn a little bit more. My colleague Dan will be interjecting at points during the program today to kind of showcase what CareStack may look and feel like. So that's it for the infomercials. Thank you for hearing us out. I'm now going to introduce Lynne from Victory Dental Management. She is the founder and CEO. And really, Lynne by trade is a coach extraordinaire in the dental space. She's also an author, and I want to point that out. And she really derives a lot of satisfaction from coaching teams in seeing them succeed and transition to new heights. And if you were with us, Lynne contributed back in May along with Teresa, Duncan on a program about patient communications. And the feedback was so tremendous that we wanted to bring her back today as the featured speaker to kind of continue the conversation on closing the gap between patients and the practice. So Lynne, I'm going to turn it over. I probably didn't do a great job introducing you. So I want to give you a moment to kind of introduce yourself to the audience and build some rapport with them, if that's all right. And then please take it away.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate CareStack and Derby Dental. A little bit more about me. As you said, that I actually consider myself a dental coach, and you will see the true reason for that in a moment. I'm a member of National Speakers Association, ADMC, SCN, ADOM, and other organizations. I contribute to my monthly newsletter, The Coach's Corner, as well as Dr. Bicuspid and some other state and local newsletters as well. So enough about me, but I want to go ahead and get into this, because when we were talking about how to get this information to you guys, the whole purpose of this is to show you things that you may or may not be aware of. But let me give you a heads up on this, because this webinar, first of all, it's totally casual. You guys need to relax and see information. You're going to see us probably drink some water, do some things, but it's going to be different because I'm going to explain different technologies, and then Dan is going to show you the technologies that I just described. It's like a show and tell, but in this case, it's going to be like a tell and show, maybe, because we know that everybody likes to see how things work. And there's an easy way to introduce these concepts to you. So, Dan, go ahead and keep it on that slide for me. And I'll explain. We're going to go into options about what's available and how it benefits your practice, but not only your practice, but your patients and your teams as well. And why am I showing pictures of me coaching basketball? Well, away from the dental world, I do coach girls AAU basketball. And in total full disclosure, I'm going to look at competitive advantages for you, but also how to bring out your natural strengths as well. Because there's a huge difference between having employees work for you and having a true team work for you. And as the webinar progresses, you're going to see more about what I'm talking about. But I also want to offer a complimentary gift at the end of this webinar. So stay tuned for that, okay? We're going to focus on 3 questions and how to answer them. How do you compete with other practices around you? How do patients find you? How do you make it easier for patients to do business with you? And for the first question, what I want you to do is meet with your team, because ask them about your strengths. Maybe it's going to be you have the ability to have technology to do same-day dentistry, but asking your team to help you brainstorm, that's a great idea for your next team meeting. And the last 2 questions here we're going to answer as the webinar progresses. These are going to be the 4 segments that we cover today during the webinar. It's going to be broken down into 4 areas: patient discovery, patient onboarding, patient engagement, and finally, the patient visit. Okay, years ago, it was a really big deal for practices to build their own website. And I know a lot of doctors thought, I'm going to be able to create something and it's going to be fine for years. But here's the issue with that. Technology is catching up with us. So websites need to be improved and updated on much more frequently than a lot of people think about, because the functionality of what you can actually do on your website has gotten so much better. Gone are the days that your website shows just basic information about your practice. You need to remember that your website is what your potential patients and your current patients are going to see. And it represents your practice and your brand. But think about your website being your home base. This is where you're going to have everything, whether it be newsletters or blog posts, or maybe you have before and after pictures. And there's also going to be some other functionality that we're going to talk about during our time together. Something to keep in mind, in our digital world, our phones are like handheld computers, and most patients are going to use their mobile phone instead of their desktop. So make sure your website is optimized for both mobile and desktop use. Some people may wonder what I mean by the word optimize. So I'm going to try to keep things very simple and explain things as I go. Optimize just means making sure your website looks the same and has the same functionality on both platforms, your mobile and your desktop. Okay, SEO optimization. Some people hear this phrase, but they're not really sure what it means. So let me simplify what SEO means. It actually stands for search engine optimization, which the whole purpose of that is to increase the quality of traffic coming to your website through your search engine results. Now, another way I want you to think about your SEO is making your website more visible to potential patients. That's what that really means to you guys. And it needs to be a part of your marketing strategy. Your marketing strategy also needs to include some social media posts showing a friendly, and particularly today, a safer side to your practice, to those patients that are looking. Now, I want you to show, all of this is new since COVID-19 shut down. I want you to think about this like a patient as far as your posting. What do they want to see? And I want you to brag about all of the investment you made in new purifiers or defogging or whatever you're doing new in your office. You got to broadcast that information and let people know about it. This is a competitive advantage for you guys, and I want you to show it so everyone knows about it. Broadcast it, because I want you to think about all of your technology and all of the investments that you've made in your practice and showcase that in your post. I want you to get the biggest bang for your buck, really. Now, in order to do that well, you need to keep organized. And I want you to start thinking about creating a social media calendar and being able to preload posts to set yourself up for success. And for some of you, you may wonder what exactly I just said by preloading post. So let me make things, again, simple for you. Some people they're not sure what to do. So create many or several different posts to be able to use for a future time. You may want to try a platform like Hootsuite, or there's really hundreds of them out there that you can use. Different software to input and preload your post into a platform. But I want you to post, not necessarily all the gory dentistry that you do, but the fun stuff. Show people what you do in the community, because it's never too late. And I always have doctors ask me, I haven't taken any pictures. I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball. It's never too late to start, okay? Because it's October. I cannot believe it's October, but we are here. Which of what happens during October? Halloween. So take pictures of your team. Have pictures of them in costume if they're going to do that this year, or maybe some other things regarding Halloween. But October is also Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is a great topic to include in your social media calendar. Again, the calendar is used for a couple different purposes. First, to keep you organized, because there's a lot of stuff going on and you need to have a way to keep things organized with what you want to post. And also it enables you to create posts in advance, which takes away pressure. And I got to share with you, that's really, I think, the number one thing that keeps practices from doing more social media is the pressure of what am I going to post? Well, if you have your calendar, you've already scheduled that out and you know what you're going to post. So there's no pressure. You may be thinking now, all right, Lynn, you got me with the social media calendar, but how frequently do I need to post? And you may find some people that have a differing opinion. But I like to think that it's better to be consistent versus being worried about quantity, especially in the beginning. It may be easier to start once a week and then build from there. Just get your processes started with social media and using your calendar, and then increase your frequency of posting. Google Ads. So that's an option that you can use for your marketing efforts. But if you do use Google Ads, make sure that your website is designed to get the most out of your ad spend. Because all of these efforts, it's designed so that you can capture to increase your visibility to everybody. And what do I mean by that? There are keywords and tags that you use with Google that you need to make sure you're replicating and using that on your website. Again, so you get the biggest bang for your buck. Figure out your ideal patient and then target to that audience. And the more you market, the more potential patients are going to see your website and they're going to be curious to find out more about your practice. But let's be real, because you're going to need to compete with all of the noise in your marketplace. If you're not sure how to start a Google campaign, there are many marketing companies out there that can help you, and you can actually contact Google as well. But here's the main point. All of your efforts, they need to be organized and used most effectively for your time and the budget that you want to spend. And understand your strengths and weaknesses in comparison to other practices around you so you can gain an advantage over your competition, right? Every practice has strengths, so use yours to your advantage. Which reminds me, all practices should really understand your strengths and weaknesses. If you need help with that, let me know. Okay, chat support. You can use this for several different functions that are going to make it easier for your team and especially your patients. This technology, it shows up on your website and it shows patients, no matter what generation they belong to, that you are forward focused for ease of doing business and that technology is important. And this technology is pretty commonplace now, so it's really easy to use. And you may have already used it yourself, especially during COVID, doing that online shopping that you do in private. So I'm sure you've seen chat windows before. Again, having that is another competitive advantage for you. Patients can do many things with chat support, such as scheduling an appointment or rescheduling the appointment, making a payment, or if they need to chat with a team member, that is available as well. And just to be clear, what I'm talking about is that pop-up window that shows up in the corner of the screen of your website. And to show you what I'm talking about, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dan so that you can see the different things that I've mentioned thus far.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it. I think one of the things we'll start off with is where you talked about their website and having it be mobile optimized. Because I've seen quite a few as I chat with clients out there where you'll pull it up on a mobile device and some stuff ends up hiding behind things and you can't quite get to everything on the site. So we can see I've created a website here for our demo environment that's called Bright Smiles, a fictitious practice with 6 locations. And we've mobile optimized it, right? So I'm viewing it now as if I were on my iPhone, and it's going to take everything and stack it vertically, still allow me to go into the full menu option here. Biggest thing, and like you had mentioned, right? People want to go and take action so they can book an appointment. And like you had just been speaking about, is the chat feature. So here we have a chat attendant called Eva that's going to connect, and it's going to allow them to take action as far as, scheduling their first visit, the need to reschedule an appointment, make a payment, or talk to a staff member directly in the clinic to talk about a bill or upcoming treatment, and without having to pick up the phone. Now I'll expand this out just to show it's going to be the same view if I take it out to a full desktop. So that I think is a good comparison of looking at, hey, is my site mobile optimized? If you're unsure, the easiest thing, pull your smartphone out, go to your website, and try to go into all the menu options. If some things aren't opening or it's cutting off a portion of it, it hasn't been optimized to then push everything to a stacked vertical option. Pretty easy fix if you're working with the agency to go in there and modernize that website, as well as, adding that chat feature. Like Lynn was saying, a lot of people have converted over to that. We're also seeing with a lot of offices that we work with, maybe they're checking people in curbside via phone. So it takes some of the pressure off the front desk staff if we can move some of this over to chat and not overload your phones that we can then reserve for potentially new patients or capture the new patients coming in via chat. Lynn, I'll hand it back to you. I don't want to go into anything further down the road on the presentation here. Did you have anything to add on any of those components?
I am good. Don't give away any secrets yet, because we're going to get some more stuff.
Exactly. I will jump to the next section then, the patient onboarding experience.
All right. So patient onboarding. Most patients search for a dentist when you're not open, right? Whether it be during the night or during the weekend when you're closed. So I want you to take advantage of technology that makes scheduling easier for you, your team, but especially your patients. And I'm telling you guys, online scheduling is a total game changer, because you get to control all of the parameters around this. You control the type of appointment, the time slots, all parameters. And that's the part that makes it useful for you, because that's what you need. You need to be able to control all those parameters, and now you can. The technology is finally there for you. It makes it so easy and convenient for all patients, again, no matter what their age is, to be able to schedule their appointment. And I'll tell you, and I've heard this from patients before, patients equate having this kind of technology that makes their life easier, they equate that with the state-of-the-art technology that is in your practice. So imagine how impressed your patients will be regarding this new capability that you get to put on your website, making it easier for your patients to schedule at their convenience. What am I going to say? It's a competitive advantage for your practice. This is what I'm talking about. And virtual consultations. Now, the technology for that actually was around before COVID-19, but of course, teledentistry is talking about this ever since this hit, but it's offered on several different platforms. Many practices are looking into this to see how it can help patients now, but also in the future. And using this technology, it is really convenient, again, for everybody involved. Having the ability to actually look at a patient's mouth outside of your office is a great benefit for you. But let me tell you a couple different ways my clients are using it. You may or may not have thought of it this way, but my clients are using it several different ways. One is to reinforce treatment plans, which you may or may not have thought of. Two is post-op checks. And then the third is what you've all assumed. It's the typical way to make sure, is something really an emergency or can it wait till the next day? Now, a lot of platforms use an app on your phone for this so that it can be used anywhere and it remains HIPAA compliant. I cannot stress enough, please maintain your HIPAA compliance through all of this. So now you have the ability to travel and still be available to your patients when your office is closed. Digital intake forms. Technology has now advanced for these forms to be available and convenient for your patients and your team. No longer will there be really an undue stress on your patients or your team. Or no more waiting for those forms to be filled out in the waiting room. But here's my personal favorite, and maybe when you see my handwriting, you will understand this. No more guessing at someone's handwriting. I will gladly type all day long, because if you want to see it, you want me to type it. You don't want to see my handwriting, so I will fall on that sword first to let you know that. But in addition to that, there's no more paper. And I know when offices first opened up after COVID, that was one thing that everybody was trying to figure out. How do we get the paper out of the office? You can use that now, but also in the future, because it saves time and hassle for your patients, but also for your team. And here's another thing you may or may not have thought of. When patients are filling this out, they're doing it from the comfort of their home, which, what does that mean to you as the practice? It means that they're actually including all of the medications that they're on, and that the forms are complete, because they don't have the pressure of trying to write everything before you call them back for their appointment. So imagine the time that's actually going to be saved using this technology. As soon as the patient fills those out on your website, your team can then get that information, start researching the insurance benefits, and be prepared with this information before your patient even arrives. And here's the clincher. It's going to limit those bottlenecks that typically occur in your offices at the front. There's always a bottleneck when you're talking about a new patient form or updating health forms. So getting rid of that bottleneck is going to be helpful for everyone. So that you can see what I've already talked about, I'm going to hand it over to Dan so he can actually do the show part of our webinar.
Thank you, Lynn. This is a big section. So I'm going to jump back to the website. And for the online appointment booking, I'm pulling up an actual website instead of my fictitious clinic. So this is a client I work with, just to show some of the guardrails that they've put up. Because I know when we talk to some front desk staff, they get the night sweats when we start talking about self-booking. Is, you know, if we're not letting somebody jump in and book their own implant. So when they land on your website here, we want them to take action, right? So we can jump in here, hit book appointment, and it's going to pull them into a calendar view. But the guardrails that can be put up are by the clinic here as far as what they can book for. We can see this clinic is chosen to only allow them to book for a new patient exam and a cleaning. And that's it. So this way they can select a time that's going to work as a new patient. They can click on that, they enter in their demographic information, hit schedule, and they're going to land in the appointment book. So that's the first thing we want to cover, right? It's an easy process both on the patient side, but also on the staff side inside of the dental office. So now I'm going to go inside of CareStack for a moment to show where this is going to pull over to. So just bear with me a moment here while I pull up another tab here. So now I'm going inside of CareStack, right? So we want to go through and see where those appointments are going to be landing. So if we go into our schedule, we're going to see who's self-booked themselves online. So if I go to my online appointments here, it's going to show me a queue of anybody that is booked directly themselves. So that way the staff is going to have visibility into those appointments. Number one, because we want them to see who's booked themselves so they can go in and check to make sure, like Lynn was saying, their forms are complete, etc. So that's online appointment booking. The other piece I want to transition over to is you talked about teledentistry, Lynn. And we have that built directly inside of CareStack, so we can take any one of our appointments and we can convert it over to a teledentistry appointment. So we can see Jim here is on the schedule. He's got that video camera at the end there of his appointment. That's going to indicate that it's a teledentistry appointment. So I can kick this off from a couple of places, right? I can do it right here, where I can start that teledentistry appointment. And what that's going to do, it's going to pull me into Jim's chart, because it's not a bolt-on solution, it's part of CareStack. So it's going to pull me directly into his chart, give me the option to start this call. And then on the patient side, one thing I want to touch on, Lynn, is the last thing we want to do at CareStack is create like extra work for the staff. So we don't do anything off of apps. So Jim gets an email on his phone that has a link that he can open up, and it's just going to launch Chrome or Safari and start that appointment and have a big red start call button on his end as well too. So he doesn't have to download anything that could prompt a call to the office saying, hey, I need help with this, right? That we don't want to turn them into the Genius Bar at the Apple Store. So they can hit the start call button. And then we can also walk through treatment as well too, because I can do a screen share. My video is not popping up because I'm on my Zoom video, so it's competing. But if I'm on here with Jim, I could speak to a treatment plan. So I could share my screen. I could say, let's go over to the advanced planner. Here's the treatment plan we talked about, Jim. Or maybe I want to show an x-ray to be able to cover that with the patient. I will say, I know there's a lot of people in attendance today. Some may not be using teledentistry, and we hear that often. We do have a lot of our clinics, though, using it for post-op follow-up to reduce the number of people that are inside their clinic. We have a pediatric office that uses it to go over treatment plans with mom or dad that might be in the parking lot or curbside to keep the number of people down inside the actual clinic, to keep it to those that are just being treated. So a lot of good applications for teledentistry outside of what everybody thinks of. How can I diagnose somebody without seeing what's happening in their mouth, right? So a lot of good applications there. And then the other piece you had covered, Lynn, I want to make sure I'm going in concert with like what you covered were forms. I believe was kind of next in line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we see our patients here. I'm going to hang up on my teledentistry appointment. This is our home screen. So it's going to show me everybody that has something that's potentially missing that I need to address that day. And it's going to highlight it in red, from their eligibility to not being checked to a medical history form that may be incomplete. So we can see on mine here, I do have some pending forms. So I want to get those taken care of. So I have a couple of options, right? Maybe Dan's checked in curbside and I want to send him a text message. I could go to an overview. I could be checking some things on Dan here. I'm going to snooze this alert. I'm going to send him a text message saying, hey, you have some incomplete forms. Here's a link to the patient portal. And I'm going to copy this so everybody can see what that shortened code looks like and that it's mobile optimized. So they get the text. This is what the patient's going to see. Now, this isn't what you're doing in the clinic. So this would be the patient opening this up on their phone. They're in the parking lot. They can log in here. And I'm going to shrink it again because we're big at CareStack. I'm making everything mobile optimized. It's going to stack everything vertically. And as Lynn was saying, we have the opportunity now to go in and complete items or make a payment. And I can also manage my whole family. But for the sake of time, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to complete a form quickly. We'll go to a Hipaa Consent. I can view this, and I can go down and sign. It's myself, a guardian, or a parent. And it's touchscreen capable, or they can use a mouse or whatever they readily have available. That form is now complete. And we're going to be able to see on the patient side here, I have these big red bubbles under forms that haven't been completed. But once that's signed, I'll be able to go in and see it's going to flip it over from red to black. And I'll be able to open up a copy and see the signature, that it has a date and a timestamp. So again, the staff doesn't have to do anything. There's no chain of custody issues any longer. Those forms have just been complete. Lynn, I want to check in real quick with you. There were a lot of items in there. I want to make sure I'm touching on all those key areas that you had outlined.
Yep, you're doing great.
Okay.
We will get to the other parts.
All right, perfect. I'm going to go back to your presentation, let you pick it up. Go ahead, Jim.
Hey, Dan and Lynn, real quick, we are getting some questions in the Q&A bot here, so thank you for doing that. And again, please, we're going to park those questions and then come back to them at the completion of the presentation, but please keep them coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks. Okay, patient engagement. Again, this is going to be, what do we think? A competitive advantage for your team and your practice. A win-win for everybody involved. For automated reminders, this technology is not new, but it is so useful for your team to be able to streamline front office processes. Because when this was originally developed, there were only two ways that you could get this information: phone calls and emails. Those were the only manner of communication. But now the ability to text is available. So when contacting patients to remind them of their appointment, most practices set up their communications to remind them 2 weeks out, a week out, and 2 days out of the appointment. And I got to share with you, I was asked by a new client, what is so special about 2 days out from the appointment? And I got to tell you, that was a fantastic question, because honestly, there's nothing special about 2 days. The real question needs to be asked, for your practice, how long will it take to find a patient to fill in that time slot, just in case a patient can't make it? That's the better question to ask. So if it's 3 days, it's 3 days. If it's 2 days, it's 2 days. So when you hear somebody talk about that, keep it in similarity with what happens in your practice, okay? Because some practices have waiting lists for appointments. Some practices do not. They're all across the board right now with all of this. And I could spend hours talking about patient communication and reminders, but it's just a part of that process. So the bigger question too is, how intentional is your team with setting the correct patient expectation? And by that I mean, if patients think that they can cancel an appointment and get another one pretty quickly, the incorrect expectation has been taught to your patients. And remember that this is a reminder, not a confirmation, because their appointment was confirmed when they made it originally. So the words that your team uses, they're going to have a direct effect on this process and your schedule as well. Okay, let me get back to reminders, because I can go down that rabbit hole all day. But the good thing is, most patients will respond to what you're actually sending them. But for those minority that do not, your team gets to focus on the exception to the rule instead of all of the patients on your schedule. And this can be used for all appointments, whether it be recare with hygiene or on the doctor side. And it saves a ton of time for your team so that they can actually focus on patient care instead. Two-way texting. This is really the preferred mode of communication for most patients. And it's also the easiest technology for your patients as well. I was doing some research for this, and I found that Text Magic says that 78% state a text is the fastest way to reach them. That's good to hear. And 89% of people always have their phone easily accessible. Excuse me, not acceptable, but accessible. Texting can also be used in a variety of ways. Some things you may or may not have thought of. We know that letting patients know of an unexpected opening in your schedule, we can pretty much assume we can use it that way. But I have clients that use it to let people know if they're running early and if they can come in early, because some people are just waiting to come to the office. So it works both ways from that standpoint. Texting is also another way to stay connected with your practice. And you can use it to wish patients happy birthday or other special occasions, really. Again, use this technology to your advantage, since some patients will respond via text versus phone calls or emails. And I want to share a story about how my clients actually use this technology, especially now. Because when their office was shut down, it caused a lot of turmoil in all of your schedules. My offices sent out an email and a text blast to those patients so that they could use online scheduling to find a convenient time to get back into the office to be seen. And since your office controls all of the parameters around your schedule, this mode was the most efficient way to communicate with those patients to be able to reschedule. So we pulled the reports that we needed to send the blast based off of the priority and the date that they were last seen. So using these technologies together, that puts your practice in a great position with communicating many different things to your patients. Okay. Prepare yourself for this next huge competitive advantage, and I cannot underline that enough. It is now possible for patients to input their insurance information on your website and see how they can use their benefits at your office. This technology, it really assists new and existing patients, and it helps patients regarding their benefits. In addition, it takes some stress off of the front office so that they can focus on patient care as well. And this advantage, it's great for those offices that have strategically, they're accepting certain insurance plans. And I want you to also understand your insurance fee schedules, understand those and renegotiate the ones that need attention. Because I personally believe insurance participation needs to be a part of your overall business plan. If you need help with this, please get in touch with me. I'd be happy to help you. And digital treatment plans. I know we would absolutely all love it if every patient accepted their treatment and scheduled on the same day, right? Well, unfortunately, we know that that does not happen 100% of the time. So what do you do when that happens? Now, here's the answer. Technology exists that allows a patient to retrieve their treatment plan so that they can view it, they can sign it, and they can schedule their appointment. It's easy for patients to complete this process. And guess what? No more missing paper treatment plans. And the system will also log all the patient interaction by date, so you do have proof of delivery, because that's very important for your record keeping. And when getting patients to say yes to treatment, you really want to make that as easy as possible for your patients. This particular software will also show you the breakdown of treatment by the insurance plan estimate as well as the patient estimate of treatment. And I know that Dan is really excited to be able to show you this. So take it away, Dan.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute, wasn't I?
You were, sorry about that.
My apologies. We'll jump into the patient engagement piece here in CareStack, where we have it fully built out for managing the reminders of their appointments, the confirmations of appointments, and any promotional items you want to push out to your patient base or prospective patients inside of the platform. Here you can see are the templates that you can create inside of CareStack, the scheduling you have around that. But what we hear from a lot of individuals that are on the platform and using it is on this side here, is where they can start to segment out how they're communicating with their patients. And they can have a different message based on an age group, or perhaps gender, or a specific patient flag. Or they can also drill into the type of appointment they have coming up by code, maybe with some pre-op instructions, same for a past appointment. And then if we get into the treatment plan side of it, like you had mentioned, Lynn, with the treatment plans, it's important to have that digital copy and to have them sign off on it. But a big piece as well, too, what we hear from offices are, how do I get a hold of that data of those, couple $1 million maybe that went untreated throughout the entire year, and automate a system to reach out to them. So we have that inside of CareStack, where we can choose, treatment plan outreach for procedures that have gone unscheduled in a certain number of days that are in a certain status, we'll say proposed, and then we can drill down by code to then have the system start engaging with them. So that's a high level on the patient engagement side. And in conjunction with that, I think we have our patient list, which sometimes gets overlooked, but I feel it's a really powerful tool to be able to engage with the patients on a one-on-one basis. So we can build the list for the team to be able to do some two-way text like you had mentioned there, which is some great data you had from that organization as their preferred method of contact. So we have some pre-built lists, maybe patients with upcoming appointments the next day. So if we have another shutdown or maybe inclemental weather that we have to notify them, we can generate a list quickly, and then we can call this list, or we can text with them, and we can do a quick text to everybody on the list. So we can send that message out like, hey, we're going to be closed the first few hours today. we'll start rescheduling from there. Another great list that I see a lot of offices using would be unscheduled procedures with remaining benefits. So we can generate this list here and have a working call sheet. And maybe we don't automate that treatment plan one, Lynn, maybe for some of those higher end procedures like implants, full mouth reconstruction, we're making phone calls versus a text message or an email. So this way now they have a nice call sheet. And again, they can send a text to them to say, hey, I reached out to you, left a voicemail, wanted to discuss that treatment plan we had built out inside of CareStack. I'm going to pivot over to the calendar view here, Lynn, to discuss like the treatment planning and the insurance side and show a little bit, pull the curtain back. I know for the sake of time, we probably can't dive too deep into it on the insurance side. Like what you were saying, as far as individuals putting their insurance information into CareStack and what that's going to equate to as we're scheduling and doing treatment planning. So I'm going to go to another tab here that has our calendar open. And I'm going to use Jim Gerson again, since he's on the calendar here. And we're going to see that, here's what he's coming in for treatment-wise, a limited exam and an x-ray. So I'm going to click on this. Oh, I right-clicked. I'm going to edit his treatment briefly to show that when we're inputting this recommended treatment, so if Jim was, calling into the clinic or we're, scheduling him over the phone or online, and his eligibility has been complete, we're going to be able to see the dollar amounts have been shifted over to the patient side from the insurance side. And then in the system, it's flagging me with some context as to why, right? So it's telling me, hey, this is limited to 2 times every 12 months for anybody under the age of 20. Trying to make you feel good there, Jim. And it's going to push that dollar amount over to the patient side. So it's super important. Like when we do this treatment planning, I think that's a thing that a lot of people, nobody likes the surprise bill. So the team needs to be empowered with the information as to why those dollars are shifting around potentially. So on the smart eligibility form that's driving this inside of CareStack, if that patient's eligibility has been done, the team can present this with over 98% certainty that that's the correct number, and they can speak to it with the patient to then come up with an acceptance of that case, maybe an alternate case, or an alternate payment solution. So I'm going to pause there for a second and hand it back to you, Lynn, unless there's something you'd like to cover a little bit deeper on either of those topics.
I'm good.
All right, great.
I appreciate it. Okay, now we are ready actually for the patient visit. So we know that safety is still the #1 priority for patients. And now you can encompass more safety. Again, that's a competitive advantage for you. So when the patient comes, please make sure that you are communicating clearly with patients with what they actually need to do at your office. Be as clear as possible. And I can tell you, as of today, October 6th, I'm seeing a lot of things change across the country. Some offices are relaxing the number of patients in their waiting rooms, and others are just as stringent as they've been before. I've actually heard of some not filling out the COVID-19 checklist, and others are just doing exactly what they did before. So wherever you are on this spectrum, you have a lot of options for your patients when they visit you. Curbside check-in, that makes coming to your office easier for your patients and your team. Because using their phone, patients let you know they're ready by checking in and filling out any information from the comfort of their vehicle. And then your team gets to let them know when it's time for them to enter your practice for their temperature check and their appointment. Text to pay. Using this technology, it's going to increase your cash flow. And I know that got everybody's attention out there when I said cash flow, and I'm glad it did, because everybody should want this. It works by sending a text message to your patient with a link so that they can view and pay their bill. But here's the really cool thing about this. There's no special login needed. You just fill in the payment information and you're done. Because I don't know about you, but I have so many passwords that having to remember one more, not having to remember, that's a really great thing. Also, what am I going to say? Competitive advantage. So when patients want to pay you, please, please make it easy for them to pay you, right? We don't want to cause any issues with that. Okay, reviews are important for many different reasons. There are a lot of patients that rely on reviews to make their decisions. And adding those new reviews to your website, especially on a regular basis, is going to help patients find you. How does that happen, Lynn? Let me answer that question. Because Google likes to see updated reviews, which is going to help your SEO, what we started talking about earlier. And I think it's better to keep it real. So I think you should ask everybody for a review because you want to know if somebody had a problem at your practice. But just in case you don't want, let me think of what to call them. Let's call them a crusty patient. If you don't want that crusty patient to actually leave you a review, you have that control not to be able to give them that link to be able to review. So, Dan, let me go ahead and send it back to you.
All right. I actually remember to unmute myself. Thank you, Lynn.
Sure.
I love your descriptor of the crusty patient.
I was trying to be nice.
So I'm going to use Jim as the example. I want to jump into text to pay because I feel like it kind of works off the back of the insurance eligibility. And actually, we have one of our clients that's having great success with this. So what they're doing is they're doing the curbside check-in, getting all the forms complete. And then like in Jim's case here, right, we know he owes $89, but there's nothing in the ledger, right, because it's recommended treatment at this point in time. So I can send him a text to pay here while I'm scheduling him. I could grab his balance that's due from the ledger, but I'm just going to do a custom amount and I'm going to type in $89. He gets a text message. And like you were saying, there's no need to put in a password. It's just a direct link. I'm sure Jim would be more than happy to hold his phone up and show us what that looks like on the device from the patient perspective to be able to easily make that
thank
payment.
you. Just give me a second, Dan.
Sure. While you do that, Jim, I'm going
to
hop over and I'm going to show the curbside check-in because that ties back again to the patient engagement.
This is the old-fashioned way.
I know. It's like taking pictures of your TV, right?
But basically, it's a link coming from a known number. In this case, it'd be the practice phone number. And then it's going to take me to a HIPAA compliant site to make the payments. So yeah, holding my phone up is not going to do justice.
Yeah, if there's something you have a deep desire for, I mean, we can coordinate a time. We can put your mobile number in there, send you a text message so you get a look and feel. But like Lynn said, we got to remove these hurdles to making a payment for the treatment that they're coming in for, that you work so hard to do day in and day out. Do a good eligibility check, and then just ask them for that money, right? And here's the curbside check-in and what this looks like. I wanted to show this briefly. It's like the last leg of the confirmation process. We're moving them from confirmed to arriving and checking in, curbside or in the parking lot. And then going back to reviews, Jim's not a crusty patient. He's been awesome. He really loves bright smiles. So let's say I'm in his chart, right? I'm working in the back. He's waiting for the doctor to come do a check after his cleaning. So I'm going to be able to jump in and send him a message, because the ultimate firewall you can put between your practice and that negative review is your team. So this way we can hit messaging here. I can go to text because I know Jim's going to pull out his phone and he's going to scroll through the news and sports while he's waiting for the doctor. So I can go in here and hit, review invite. It's going to ask him to review it. Takes 30 seconds. They use this link here. But he gets that text message on his device. So then that way, as he's sitting there scrolling, he can do a quick review. And it's going to be that short code.
Yeah.
There's a lot of companies. Go ahead, Jim.
Got it, Dan. Thanks for sending it over.
Thank you. Because a lot of companies that are selling review software act as some type of secret sauce to be able to direct somebody to your Google Place to leave that star rating. It's not. You just have to log into your Google Place, get the address, and you can build it into a template to text out to anybody. I'm going to hand it back to you, Lynn, because we got our payment, we checked them in, and we got an awesome review from Jim.
Fantastic. Okay, so I know that we've covered a lot of things, and I thought it would be really helpful, since we're towards the end of our time together, to walk you through everything we've covered thus far. Walk you through a new patient coming into the practice, taking advantage of all of the technologies that we've talked about today. So patients are going to find your practice either through a Google search or your social media post. And they're going to be so intrigued that they go and look you up and look at your website. On your website, they're going to see many things about your practice, how safe it is to be a patient, and they see that you have a caring team there. Maybe they get to see some before and after pictures of the treatment that you've done. So we've piqued their curiosity, and they check their insurance and see how they can use their benefits at your practice. While on your website, they can actually schedule an appointment, one that's convenient for their schedule. And all of this is done while your office is closed. You check your schedule the next day when you come in, and you see that that open spot is now filled. Now remember, you can control all of the parameters around online scheduling on your website. So this new patient continues to fill out their forms on your website, and your office receives that information with no messy handwriting or any guessing about medications that they're currently taking. And most important, you have complete and detailed forms to review. Next, that patient's going to receive the text reminding them of their appointment, scheduled according to the frequencies that you've decided to set up. The patient arrives at your practice, pulls into a parking spot. They check in with your team that they've now arrived for their appointment, and your team communicates back that they're ready for them to come in. The patient comes into your office and has the best experience that they've ever had in dental practice, and they can either pay before they leave your office, or they receive a link without the need to set up a special username and password. They also receive the link to leave you a review, and you can see how all of this works. But the best part, this is not only for new patients. You can parse out what you need to be able to use with your existing patients versus new patients. And what that means is all of the flexibility that you need is there to make life easier for patients to do business with you. Patients love it. And guess what? It's another competitive advantage for you. Because patients really, if you think about it, patients have never been to a practice that puts them first and respects their time with an ease of doing business. When you make things easy, people gravitate towards the easy, and that is just human nature. Okay, at this point, you have seen you can compete with other practices around you. You can ensure that patients find you, and you can make it easier for patients to do business with you. So the question is really this: will you take the steps for your patients, for your team, and for your practice? I know I discussed a lot of items, but it starts with working with a true team so that your foundation is strong, that you can build upon that. Because if your foundation's not strong, your practice will not be strong, and items are going to fall through the cracks. I want to thank you for attending the webinar, and remember that complimentary gift I noted in the beginning. I want to offer the first 5 doctors that get in touch with me a complimentary 20-minute phone call. Don't forget to follow me on social media and take a look at my website, and maybe you'll even go to Amazon to purchase my book, You Can't Coach Quit. But I want you to know that I appreciate you spending your time with us, and I especially want to thank Dan for showing you the different technologies during our time together. Thanks a lot.
Lynn, thank you so much on behalf of CareStack. You know, we are top of the hour, and it was so thorough and comprehensive. I really want to, if it's okay with everyone here, we want to be respectful of your time. Lynn's contact information is listed here. Email, I think, is a great way to get a hold of her. Facebook too as well. So we'd ask you, if you have questions, the best and the most appropriate way to do this is just email Lynne directly and have a dialogue with her. If that's all right, I think, Lynne, that's going to be the best way to go about this, if you're okay with that.
Yep, that'd be fine.
And then conversely, we have 1 or 2 questions here on the CareStack technical side. If you want to direct those to D Hall, Dan Hall, just a first initial last name, D Hall at carestack.com. Dan, if you just want to put that up in the chat feature.
Yeah, I'll chat that to everybody right now.
Yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of us. Again, we want to be respectful of your time. CareStack on LinkedIn in our series. The next program we're doing is on October 15th, and we're going to host the patient prison team here at CareStack. So thank you again, Lynne. This was a tremendous program. So much value. Everyone who's attended today is going to receive an email from CareStack with a link to this recording in short order. So thank you. Stay safe and healthy, and see you again here next time. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.